All right. Hey, good morning. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It's Tuesday. It's September 17th. And your Detroit Lions are 1-1 headed into week 3 to Arizona. Man, a city, a team that always seems to give the Detroit Lions fits. We've got a guest on the show today. Coach Tony Bono is going to join us, and he's got some hot takes for you guys today. So we're going to talk it up today. We're going to debate it. We're going to have some fun with it. So get ready, and we'll be back here in just a few moments and get this show kicked off.
Thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.
All right. Thank you to the sponsors this morning. Uper Lights. Check out Uper Lights after the show today. It's still there's still time to go do some rock hounding. It's a great activity, man. Get out there in nature. So I'm going to start off with the somber news first, man. This stuff really ticks me off, and you guys know it. It's violence, man. There is no place for violence anywhere, but especially at a Detroit Lions tailgate. We are now going to be remembered as the team that had a shooting at a tailgate, and we are now going to be remembered as the fans that lost 2 of its members now because of this altercation. The second person has now passed, succumbing to their injuries because of the shooting that took place at Shed. I think it was Shed 6, if I remember correctly. But this incident happened right around 4:30 p.m. after the game. You've got fans walking down the street. You've got kids walking down the street. You've got innocent bystanders walking down the street. And then this crap unfolds. My heart really goes out to the families that were affected. The ones that even had to witness this, the kids that, had to witness this too. It's really unfortunate. Both of the victims are Detroit residents, identified as a man in his 40s and another in his 20s. Their names have not been released, and I wouldn't release them anyway. Dan Campbell expressed, his concerns in a press conference yesterday. And, he didn't have a ton to say because he doesn't know the details. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue what Dan didn't say or did say. He just knows that any time a loss of life, it's a very tragic thing. So this is not what we want to be remembered for. And again, my heart goes out to these people. Let's get Coach Tony in here in just a few moments. Hear what he has to say. But first, I wanted to start you guys off with some NFL scores of the week. I forgot to do this segment last week, so I've got to recap it real quick. It's a quick one. So both weeks now, you guys know that I have this theory, right? I've been following this theory for about 4 or 5 seasons. It kind of changed after the NFL made some rule changes to the middle of the field, allowing, really offenses to kind of do whatever they want without being touched. So it used to be 17 points per game. It is now 20 points per game that I feel if your defense can hold the opposing offense under 20 points or less, you have a much higher probability of winning that game. Both weeks now, week 1 and week 2, 13 games in each week, the opponent scored 20 points or less and lost. So that's only 6 games in the first 2 weeks where the opponent had scored more than 20 points to lose. So it's an interesting fact. It's something like I said, I've been watching for a while now, and stats do mean something. And this is one of those stats. We're going to follow it all year. We're going to see what the win probability is based on this number. So you guys can tell me at the end of the season, am I full of it or am I on to something here? So without further ado, let's get Tony in here. Let's have this conversation. And let's debate this. It's going to be fun. I expect you guys will behave in the chat, but it will be a debate this morning. I can guarantee you that. But let's welcome Tony in. Good morning, Coach Bono. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Good morning. I mean, I'm great because I'm on the show, but a lot of red flags with our Detroit Lions that we get to discuss today. So I'm excited to kind of get into it, and let's get rolling.
Yeah. So first, man, I got to know, what's the weather like where you are today?
Well, it's beautiful. I'm up in Ontario, Canada, Sault Ste. Marie, which is basically if you take Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and Lake Huron, and where they all meet, that's exactly where we are up here. And it's beautiful. It's 75 today is what they're calling for, and we've been in the 80s all week, so we'll take it.
Yeah, that's really warm for up there, especially this time of the year.
Oh yeah.
It's been high 80s, almost 90s, and I've got the sprinklers running. Yeah, I don't have the sprinklers running usually this time of the year. It just kind of does its own thing. But
well, it's funny. We do. Sorry, quickly. I take I-75 for those Detroiters that know I-75. We take I-75 straight down the highway to the games. And it's funny because you start to see the leaves start changing up here, and then it gets greener and greener and greener the further you go. So that's how we know what the weather's going to be like.
Yeah, that's kind of fun to watch, actually, man. We haven't done a color tour or anything in a few years. We might have to get up there this year.
Yeah.
So I guess my first questions, or I guess the biggest conversation of this last weekend, what in the hell is going on with the offense is what everyone's saying. You see it everywhere. Matter of fact, here, let me just do a quick Google search. Let me just type in something here. Lions rough week 2 loss. Of course, we got all this shooting stuff in here, but the discussion on, which non-Aiden Hutchinson Lions defender has been the most productive, where Lions Aiden Hutchinson ranks in pass rush categories. I'm not seeing a whole lot talking about the Lions offense today, but yesterday, why Lions quarterback Jared Goff dropped back so often, why did that happen? Well, I've got some stats to back a lot of this stuff up that we'll talk about today, but the biggest question that I kept seeing yesterday is the offense is slow to start. And the biggest topic was, have they figured out Ben Johnson? And is our Lions offense in trouble? And then the other thing is, what's going on with Jared Goff? Why does he look so golful to, the SOL fans or, the consistent Jared Goff doubters? Did not, in my opinion, realizing it's week 2. They didn't play in the preseason. Here's my excuse for Goff, and we'll have a broader conversation. But they don't play in the preseason. They got off really hot last year because they had some rookies on this squad that nobody knew who they were. And I feel like that's what got them out the gate a little bit quicker. You had Gibbs, who really didn't do much until week 5-ish, 6-ish, if I remember correctly. But St. Laporta got started pretty much right away. And even though we didn't have Jameson Williams last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, let's just call it what it is. He was off of, his first really good season. Entering his second really good season, from last season. So there was still a lot of unknowns. And I think that there was a lot of mixing of the scheme last year. They were mixing it up really well to start the season, and it caught a lot of teams off guard. This year, something's not quite right. I'm not sure if we will have the full answer today, but I want to start there. Jared Goff is not the guy. Why or why not? Why are you and others blaming him? Or if you are blaming him, why are others blaming him for the losses, so far in the season? And the Lions offense is starting slow. Has Ben Johnson been figured out? So let's kind of start with those questions.
Sounds good. So let's start with the good about Jared Goff, because I don't have a lot of good to say, but I'll start with the good. All right. Mm-hmm. So in the off season, I've been on the show a few times. What's been my biggest critic of Jared Goff, right? The big issue that I've had with Goff is his deep ball with Jameson Williams. And you and I had a big discussion about this, about how, when you're live at games, you see Jameson Williams kind of burning guys deep. And we talked about how we don't see Goff anticipating that throw and just throwing the ball up and letting Jameson run under it, right? And you had some pretty good points when it came to that about, health and Jameson not being full 100% all the time. And this season, through 2 games, we're actually seeing Goff throw the ball up and let Jameson run under it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's the area that this offense lacked, and we're starting to see that come out now.
Yeah, so
Now,
I think what you're speaking to, not to cut you off though, is Jared's really hitting him in stride, and that was one of the biggest complaints last year, and even the first year, the last 6 games of the season is, all the Goff doubters said Goff doesn't have an arm, Goff can't throw it deep, Goff can't hit J-Mo in stride. Well, it was just going to take some time. The guys needed to play together. And now you're starting to see it, but I think that there's something there, though, that you mentioned, anticipation. That is the one thing that I will say about Jared Goff that I'm not seeing enough of this year, is the anticipation that someone's going to get open. All of these plays so far have been late throws, in my opinion, or he's waited on the throw a little bit to ensure that the play is going to be open. But I'll digress. I'll let you keep on going there.
Oh, you're fine. You're right. This has been the issue with Goff this year, is teams know that he's not mobile, right? They know he can't run. So what are teams doing now? If you watch, they're really trying to collapse the pocket on him and force him outside of the pocket to try and start moving. And you're seeing that a lot throughout the first 2 weeks. The one thing that defenses are doing against the Lions, I mean, you're at the games live as well, right? So you see this all the time, and they're not really talking about it much, local media, but you're hearing it a lot on the national front as well. Teams now are just basically playing man on the outside, zone on the outside, and in the middle, it's almost like they're just clogging the middle, right? You see them. They have the linebackers, they have the DBs, everything's in the middle, taking away those crossing routes, taking away those drag routes, taking away those quick posts, right? And that's where the Lions live. That's where Laporta lived last year. That's where Amon-Ra lived last year. And it's concerning to me that Goff isn't able to adjust to that and able to hit these other guys. Now, I don't fully blame Goff because he's throwing to arguably one NFL quality wide receiver. Again, another argument I've been making since day one. And when your receivers are getting zero separation, I know we said we talk about receivers later in the show, but it does go to this Goff situation as well. Our receivers, Amon-Ra is included in this, are getting zero separation right now, right? There's no separation between the defender and the receiver. And I'm not sure what it is. Obviously they have Tim Patrick, who was a guy they signed off the street. I have never been a huge Khalif Raymond fan. I know you have been. But the problem is Goff in a passing league isn't throwing to NFL quality receivers other than St. Brown. And William J-Mo's obviously coming around, but it's only been 2 games, and we'll kind of see if this continues. So
hold on, let me touch on that real quick. Sorry. Yep. So a couple things. J-Mo, yeah, you're right. It's only been 2 games, and he did absolutely nothing really in game 2. I mean, he had some decent stats, but how did he help the team win, when we needed it? And you mentioned something here, the crossers, right? The quick posts, everything going across the middle. It is where Jared Goff lives. It is where Amon-Ra has made his huge contract. This is exactly why I said you don't pay a guy this kind of money. You have to go out and get an X receiver. You have to get somebody that can press the boundary to reopen the middle of the field, because they're doing exactly what I expected that they were going to do against the Lions this year, was close the middle down. As soon as you close the middle, and I don't know if you're going to go there with this at all today, but what do you think Goff's worst throw percentage is? Like, which type of route?
So Goff, if you actually look at it, when Goff throws those out routes, because him and St. Brown run, that out route that they run is absolutely beautiful. We all know it's coming. The defenses know it's coming. And, I think that is actually one of Goff's better anticipation throws that he does make, because he does have to make that throw early on. But where Goff lives is in that 5 to 8 yard route. Right? The 5 to 8 yard range is where he absolutely lives. And as soon as teams take that away, they don't trust his deep ball. They don't trust his accuracy 10 to 20 yards downfield. They just don't trust it. I'm not saying he doesn't have it. That's where teams are now saying, listen, That's where you need to beat us, Detroit. Because again, as a defense, you can't take away every aspect of the game. So what are teams going to take away against the Lions? They're going to take away the run, right? Obviously, that's the big thing. They're going to try and take away the run and stop the run. And what's the second thing they're going to do? They're going to try and take away that short yardage pass. And it's almost like that's a weakness of Detroit, because if you're going to stuff the box to stop the run, well, you already have your linebackers and DBs playing up. So you're basically just taking away that entire middle area of the field. And you're forcing Goff to make these throws 15, 20 yards downfield that he doesn't like making. And it's part of Ben Johnson's offense that you kind of see as a little bit of a struggle, is that intermediate range, right? There's not many pass plays in that intermediate range. We've never seen it. And it's really starting to expose itself through the first 2 games of the season.
So a couple of things here. I would say that Jared Goff's worst probability as a passer is throwing the out routes. And now he has this play with Amon-Ra when he's, in the slot, who's doing that, kind of an outpost, if you will. That's just a play that works for them. But what we're not seeing is, and I don't want to go off into Ben Johnson just yet, but we're not seeing enough mixture of guys in motion. I mean, we do see guys in motion, but I don't think that we're seeing enough of guys in motion to create, an instability for the defense, put them back on their heels, make them, move around a little bit. But we're also not seeing these, quasi pick plays that everybody else is running to get guys open. The Lions last year, they ran a lot of plays where they would bunch guys up. You kind of run the legal pick, right? And guys were getting open. Whether it was Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta, someone was getting open. I think the uniqueness is kind of missing, but you mentioned something else, average separation. So I told you I brought stats today, and I couldn't believe this when I read it. And again, this is next gen stats. So, I have a bone to pick with next gen stats on a lot of things that they produce. But according to them, Jared Goff is top 10 in the league with separation of his receivers. Top 10. 3.8 yards of separation on average. Lamar Jackson is getting 4.6 yards. Patrick Mahomes is getting 4.4. Jaden Daniels is getting 4.4. Tua was getting 4.4. Sam Darnold, 4.3. And you're seeing Sam Darnold, he's working it. He's absolutely working it, and with the guys, able to get open. So if we have that much space or that much separation, why is the ball not getting out? So that's going to come back to directly on Goff, in my opinion, that he's holding the ball too long. But then I looked at another stat. I'm like, wait a second. What's his average time to throw? What is going on here with Goff? Like, is he getting too much pressure? What is his average time to throw here? And when I looked that up, which let me pull it back up here, his average time to throw, or his pressure rate, was top 5 in the league. He was getting the most pressures. Let me find it here. Where did it go? I don't like the way Next Gen Stats does their stuff. All right, pressure rate. Here we go. Jared Goff is 13th. My apologies. So he is pressured 33% of all dropbacks. So anytime that you're dropping back in an obvious passing situation, he is pressured 33% of those opportunities. He's been sacked. Where is it? Now, this is a good one. He's only been sacked, according to Next Gen, twice this season, which ranks him 29th, at the bottom of the list, which is good. But then time to throw. This one kind of threw me for a loop here. Jared Goff is down near the bottom at 25th with only 2.68 seconds of time to throw. Now, Jared Goff was one of the best at dealing with pressure. But that's when he had about 2.8, 2.9 seconds. This quarter of a second is huge. That is the difference of getting the ball off clean or getting a ball off with a hand in your face or a body or an arm, something getting close to you, nudging you. I've seen Goff make plenty of throws this season so far where he's getting bumped while he's throwing, or he's getting tackled while he's throwing. He's getting hit. He's getting a lot of hurries is what I'm seeing. But I don't know that they're recording him all his hurries. Just like, not to go off on a tangent here, how PFF has like literally no hurries for the Lions during the Tampa Bay Bucks game. How? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so to give you a few stats to back some of this stuff up, he's under a lot of pressure, right? 2.68 seconds to throw. He is getting separation, but I feel like he's not looking at all of his options quick enough. And I have seen plenty of guys wide open. Now, I don't want to talk about the guys that are third or fourth look all the time, because usually the play is way past that. I mean, if you got 2.68 seconds, that's not a whole lot of time. That's giving you less than half a second to go bang, 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 to four guys. It's extremely quick. Not many of us can do anything in half a second, let alone blink. But I'll let you keep on going here. So those are some stats to kind of back it up a little bit.
Well, Matthew Stafford got the ball out of his hand in 2.1 seconds, I think it was, or 2.2 seconds on average in that first game against the Lions.
It was 2.5, yeah.
Oh, 2.5, sorry. And he ripped us apart, right? So
yeah. By the way, his average time to throw is 2.83 so far in the season.
Yeah. What I think about Goff, listen, guys, I know this is an unpopular take because people in Detroit, it's, I've said this before, they all just love Jared Goff or they love Matthew Stafford, and you can't like both. But the unfortunate reality is Jared Goff is not a very good quarterback. He's just not. I mean, he is what he is, right? He's, I know, Will, you love or you think he's better than that, and that's fine. But the problem is just because a guy wins doesn't make him a good quarterback, right? And Jared Goff has his limitations. He can only do so much. And last year, you saw him at the top of the mountain. You saw the best version of Jared Goff you're going to see throughout his career last season. He was lights out last year. He was really good. And now we're starting to see him come back to reality a little bit because teams, again, are, they know what he does. They know his weaknesses. He can't roll out, so he's not going to run. He's not going to beat you with his legs. He's absolutely zero threat there. So teams are now just sitting back, clogging the middle of the field, hoping they get some pressure. And then Goff is just being Jared Goff, right? And it's really frustrating to watch that, especially, going to these games and watching that. So I don't know. I just, again, Goff is who he is, right? He's not going to get better, right, than what we saw last season. And now we're starting to see that, him come back to reality a little bit. And I find it really concerning. I don't know, I know it's only 2 games in. I know they don't play in the preseason, but you're starting to see a trend here, and it's concerning to me.
So here's what I will defend Goff with this. One, I think he's a great quarterback because I think that he does so many things well on the mental side of the game that a lot of quarterbacks will never have and can never do. He's a pre-snap sniper. I was going to do a video about it, calling him the pre-snap sniper. He is. Like he puts his team in the right position 99% of the time. Does he have the best arm strength in the NFL? No, but do you need it? Absolutely not. A lot of people, they wanted Bryce Young. They wanted a nice new quarterback last season, right? To get rid of Goff. You want Hendon Hooker in the game. Bryce Young's benched by week 2 now of his second season. I've told you guys time and time and time again that drafting a rookie quarterback is a crapshoot. Look at Caleb Williams. He is hot trash to start this season. Doesn't mean he'll finish that way, but he's hot trash to start. One out of all the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round last year are actually decent. Stroud is actually a pretty good quarterback. And you're going to have about one of those every 5 years. That's it. I mean, the stats are all there. So the answer is not replacing Goff. The answer is we got to fix some things. There's not a whole lot of quarterbacks that can play at this level. Here's my argument for Goff. This time last year, Goff was under pressure 11 times through the first 2 weeks. So far this season, and this makes zero sense because this offensive line is supposed to be better, Goff is a third most pressured quarterback in the league. He had 18 pressures in week 2 alone, according to Next Gen Stats. And on the season, He is the 5th most pressured quarterback with 29 pressures through 2 games. Whereas this time last year, he had a third of that, 11. So that's the difference. Something, in my opinion, is up with the offensive line. I mean, they've been good. They haven't been great. There's something going on here. And some of these numbers just don't jive with each other, in my opinion. That's why you have to watch the tape. So Goff's been under a lot of pressure, and I think that that's really affected his ability to get the ball out. Maybe he's second guessing what he's doing right now just because he is under so much pressure. And you know how it is. I mean, if you're under that much pressure, you kind of get happy feet, right? But I think it's the exact opposite for Goff. I think he's almost like, how do I put it? He's like frozen. You know, he's just not reacting quick enough. He doesn't want to throw an interception. He doesn't want to he wants to protect the ball. But last year we kind of saw the same thing from Goff. He had a little bit of a slow start in the beginning. He threw the majority of his interceptions through the first 5 or 6 games, and then it was nothing. You know, then he was dialed in, and he was good the rest of the year. We watched him go 283 snaps without throwing an interception. Second most ever in NFL history. So, I know he can protect the ball. I'm not worried about his interceptions. I don't know if you were going to talk about that today, but I am not worried about these interceptions, especially the first one, which should have been a penalty. Everybody knows it. And last year, the same thing happened. Should have been a penalty, and everybody knows it. He's got to make plays. And in this game, this loss, I'm going to put more of this loss on Dan Campbell. You're in the red zone 7 times, which is 1 more than you were in the red zone all last season. You never made it to the red zone more than 6 times in a game all last season. And you won and you scored in every single game at a higher rate. But this year, for whatever reason, we're not able to get the ball into the end zone. And I think that's an issue with Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. You got to kick the field goals. Quit going for the touchdown. If you were relying on your defense that much in the end of the game, and I even said it during the game, kick the field goal, put your defense out there to win the game. But I'll digress. We can touch on that in a minute. Jared Goff. Give me your final 90 seconds on Jared Goff and why or why not. You know, are you blaming him for everything through week 2? Where does he belong in this conversation? I understand you say you don't think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a fine quarterback. I think that there's a lot more quarterbacks we could get worse with in a hurry.
Can you win with Jared Goff? I believe you can. And Ben Johnson's proved that. Can you win with Jared Goff as your quarterback with the expectation for him to go out and win you games? No, I don't think you can. And that's where I am with him. And, you know, I wish I was going to bring my whiteboard with me today because, like I said, I'm the coach. I love talking about X's and O's, and I love seeing this. But you'll notice this, so I kind of drew this up just now as I was doing it because this is exactly what teams are doing against us. You can go back and watch the tape. The Bucks did exactly what the Rams did. And again, I don't know if there was some collusion or they were talking about it or something, but it's almost identical. I don't even know if you can see this, but
I can barely just hold it a little bit closer.
Okay.
There we go.
I don't know if you can. Okay. So this is what teams are playing against us with Jared Goff, because what they're doing is, and again, this is the most simplest version that I can say, or the simplest way I can describe it. So you have your defensive ends, right, that are shooting to the outside every time, forcing the pocket. Okay. They're trying to get pressure with their D tackles. And then what teams are doing, they'll often do it to the strong side, not the weak side, because Goff likes looking to the strong side a lot. Or sorry, he likes looking to the weak side a lot. What they do is they're bringing this linebacker in or this linebacker, and they're either making him blitz, they're either shooting him up the gap to get some added pressure. But then what they're doing is they're dropping these other 2 backers to the middle of the field. They're bringing 2 DBs into the zone, and they're letting them cut in, because what do the Lions run, right? They run lots of post routes, right? They run lots of the drag routes, right? So what they're doing is they're really starting to kind of clog up the middle of the field, and Goff's having a tough time. Those plays to Jamo, those deep passes to Jamo was on this side of the field. He was running through the play, And then, he just used his wheels to beat the safety and come over here. But Goff has to have time in that situation. So somehow the Lions need to figure out a way to hit these routes in this little area here and those 10 to 15 yard routes over here, because that's where you're seeing the weakness in this zone, in this defense. And you're seeing teams play that all the time against the Lions. Again, my tickets, right? We sit in the corner of the end zone, which is what I love as a coach, because you get to actually see the formations, you see what teams are doing, you see who's blitzing, you get to see it. And that is, again, that is at the most basic scale of what's happening, but you're seeing that happen a lot. So what does Goff need to do better? I don't know if Goff has to do anything better, because Goff is who he is. I think that this goes back to the offensive line. You're 100% right. They struggled this season early on, which is a little bit surprising, but they have struggled a little bit. This goes back to the receivers, and it goes back to Ben Johnson, which we're going to talk about later on. But, coming into today's show, just quickly before we move on, I busted out. I keep this, my favorite bobblehead that I have, because this is kind of the attitude I have going into this week and kind of where I see the season potentially going. But it's my famous Joey Harrington, Charles Rogers bobblehead here. And
Are you calling JMO Charles Rogers bust?
What I'm saying is
the late, may God rest his soul, the late Charles Rogers.
Absolutely. If we had Charles Rogers on this team again, God rest his soul, obviously he's no longer with us, but if he was still around, he could start for us. That's how weak we are at wide receiver. And Joey Harrington, hey, you can call Jared Goff Joey Harrington 2.0 in terms of their skill set. Skill set. Not decision making, nothing like that, because I agree with you. Goff is like a coach on the field. But skill-wise, talent-wise, honestly, what's the difference? What does Goff have that Joey Harrington didn't have in terms of pure skill as a football player? Not the mental side of the game, just as a football player. They're one in the same.
If I were to list a couple of weaknesses for Jared Goff, I mean, okay, he doesn't have the rifle cannon Josh Allen arm. Is that a weakness? To some it is. To others, it's not, because of the style of offense that you run. The guy has played a lot of ball. He's won a crap ton of games, and he's done it with the same arm. Jared, I'm all in on Jared. I think that, someone mentioned it in the chat. The season doesn't end week 2. And there's obviously a lot more going on. We just don't expect to lose these types of games. One, to coaching. Like, Dan Campbell should have learned by now. And I know he's taking this loss hard, because this game was his fault. The large majority was his fault. The defense put us in a great position. They gave us way more opportunity than we deserved to win. But let's kick it back to the offensive line real quick. So this offense is starting slow. I guess we'll bring a couple of things in here. Has Ben Johnson been figured out? And what the hell is going on with this offensive line? Because, last week we had 3 offensive linemen ranked in the top 5 for Detroit Lions. And this week we have 3 offensive linemen ranked in the top 6 for the Detroit Lions PFF offensive grades. But here's the problem. Kevin Zeitler was our highest rated player on offense, 78.8. Penei Sewell was 6th, 69.6. These are terribly low grades. Our offensive linemen, especially Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, those guys need to be up in the mid 80s every game for this offense to work. And I'm going to throw that out there without backing it with any stats. But what I guess I could do is let's go look at, not today, but I will go look at, some stats on how well was our offensive line playing in each individual game, and how did that equate to wins? Because what I'm seeing is our offensive line had a bad game, and it clearly affected us. I've already mentioned how Goff is like the 5th highest pressured quarterback in the league right now. He has 2.68 seconds to get the ball off on average, which is extremely quick. And that's not a good thing right now. He needs more time. And if he's not going to have more time, Ben Johnson needs to dial up some different plays. And to your point on your drawing there, You're exactly right. And that's the exact defense that I've been talking about with Aaron Glenn, not to go to the defensive side of the ball. That's how you stop the middle. That's how you give our defense more opportunity to win. That's the kind of defense I expected. Man and zone working together and having a linebacker always drop into the middle zone of the field, right? You got your flats, then you got your middle zone, the little red area here, covering from hash to hash. Jack can do that. He can cover laterally. He's not the greatest coverage linebacker, but he'll get better. As long as there's a body there, they're probably not going to throw the ball as often. Hell, bring Brian Branch down into that zone. Make him your other linebacker. I mean, he's going to take you out just like the best linebackers in the game, in my opinion. So Taylor Decker, 75.3, Penei Sewell, 69.6, was a very off day. And here's the last thing I'll say about the offensive line before we get in on Ben Johnson. They've gone up against two extremely good defenses. Those defensive lines they just faced, probably both of them top 10 in the league this year. The Rams, young, vicious. The Bucs, extremely well coached with Todd Bowles. And Levante David and Vita Vea and others, an extremely difficult defense to go up against up front. Even though they had some holes in the back end of their defense, the front was winning the game. They put on a lot of pressure on the front, which kept our offense limited because of how quick Jared Goff had to get this ball out. And to your point about like J-Mo and that, I think J-Mo's going to be fine, but I do agree that we are definitely missing a receiver. It's why I wanted one drafted. And I think Tim Patrick's going to be fine. I know some people don't like this fact that we got Tim Patrick or whatever, that he's, like you said, off the street, but he was really with the Broncos. Tim's going to be fine. Look, from what I've seen from him on Sunday, warming up and the plays that I've rewatched, he's going to be great. I promise you, as long as they install him into the game plan and not just out there running decoy routes, he's going to be fine. The guy doesn't drop balls. He is the Josh Reynolds that we are missing, because clearly we are missing Josh Reynolds right now. That is a point that I wanted to drive home early in the season. Y'all drove him away. Y'all sent him to Denver. You pissed him off. And now we're hurting because we don't have that X receiver that we really needed. So we need someone to fill that slot. I'm hoping that Brad Holmes is doing whatever he can do to get some taller wide receivers. Last point. On the defense that they were running, why were we not sitting anybody in? I know that they were buzzing to the flats pretty hard. Dan Campbell said the same thing, but there was still an option there. Like, you can run a curl route to the out, right, to the boundary. You can run a curl route, to the sideline on the other side. You can have guys coming back. You can run, trips on the right or trips on the left. Always have one guy working back towards the ball, but the ball's got to get out. Jared Goff has got to anticipate a little bit faster and not just wait for these guys to get open. I'm watching guys get open, and it's like, 1,001, and then the ball's coming out. And it's like, dude, they were open at 1, not 1,001. They were open at 1. And he's just getting the ball out a little bit late. It's a timing issue. It's our preseason. Things will get fixed. It's only week 2. Well, now it's week 3, but I think we'll be fine. So Ben Johnson and wide receiver depth issues is where we'll go next. What is your fears about Ben Johnson right now?
So before I get into that, I'm just going to say one last Jared Goff thing.
Sure.
And then I'll let you, and then I'm going to get into it, because you keep saying he's a great quarterback. However, you and I fully agree on 3 things. The guy can't throw, he can't run, and he can't anticipate.
Well, I think he can throw. I just think he doesn't have the strongest arm.
That's right. So he doesn't have the strongest arm. He can't anticipate, and he can't run. So those are 3 major strikes of being a quarterback. So what does he do well, right? That's the big question. So going into the O-line, I'm actually not worried about the O-line at all. I don't know how the fans feel. I am generally a pessimist when it comes to this sort of thing, but the O-line doesn't concern me. This is one of those things where I feel like the O-line just needs a little bit of time to gel. I don't think Penei Sewell is very healthy. I kind of feel like this team right now, it often sucks having a bye week early on in the season, right? It's usually terrible. Teams like it later on. But I actually think it can be an advantage for the Lions. I almost feel like they're just trying to get to the bye week here and try and get some of these lingering injuries from training camp and things, an extra week to rest. And I feel like after the bye week, you're going to see a big change with this team. However, the offensive line, I'm not concerned at all. I'm really not. I feel like once, a couple more games, they'll get into it. And to your point earlier, they played against two outstanding defenses. They played against two teams who they played in the playoffs last year. So these teams now have had, since the end of the last year, since the Super Bowl, basically, have been preparing for the Lions, right? And they've gone back and they've watched tape. They know what's going on. So our offensive line did not have an easy task, and I felt like they did a pretty nice job. Frank Ragnow, you're watching him, and that guy, I don't know how he's going to stay healthy all year. He is an absolute dog out there, and he is all over the place, picking up double teams. I like the way he's been playing so far, and you can really tell that the Lions kind of need, they need them, right? They need that offensive line to be healthy, and they need that offensive line to be intact. So again, I'm not overly concerned about the O-line yet. You touched upon something and you stole a little bit of my thunder here because I had this highlighted about Josh Reynolds. I could not agree more with you. I could not agree more. And I know that's not something that we usually talk about here, but Josh Reynolds, man, when we drove him out of town because of that one drop, I have some buddies who are obviously big Lions fans as well. And we all said the same thing. Man, are we going to regret that? Because every team that makes the Super Bowl or every team that has a deep Super Bowl run has a Josh Reynolds on their team, right? They have that Josh Reynolds type player that, doesn't make a ton of money, comes up with big catches at the right time. Him and Goff had pretty good chemistry together, which was pretty evident. And Goff trusted Reynolds. So you want to talk about the regression of this offense. Josh Reynolds not being here and us not having a Josh Reynolds replacement is a significant part of why you're seeing these early season struggles. And again, I think that, Tim Patrick, I know he was at Denver. I said he was off the streets, but Denver was going to cut him. He's been hurt. He's been injured. He's not the burner he was. He's not very fast. He's a big bodied receiver. I think, I heard the comparison at the game this week. Some people were saying, if he can be even 60% of what Anquan Bolden was when Bolden came to the Lions, right? Bolden had a great season for us that one year. And, if Tim Patrick can come in and do something, that would be massive. But the loss of Josh Reynolds cannot go unnoticed, right? I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like us losing him is the reason, single-handedly, the reason why you're seeing this offense struggle. Most third downs when Reynolds was around, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I remember I looked it up last year. Jared Goff would target Josh Reynolds on third down more than he targeted Amon-Ra last year. That was who he goes to in big plays.
Yeah, I don't have that stat or anything queued up either. I read
that last year, so I'll find out where I got it. But I did read that last year, and it was on Pro Football Focus last year, and that was who he targeted on third downs, right? So I just think that us not having that wide receiver, and we talked about this in the NFL. What's the NFL? The NFL is a passing league, right? You have to throw the ball in the NFL. The NFL is a passing league. And what do teams focus on? Teams focus on D linemen, right? And a lot of them go after wide receivers, right? They want those big name wide receivers. They want, wide receivers were getting drafted all over the place this year in the draft. What did the Lions choose to do in this year's draft? Completely ignore the D line and completely ignore another wide receiver, right? And those are the two positions that we're talking about today that we're saying, man, I wish we had extra depth. We didn't need that extra running back in the fourth round, right? We didn't need all these guys, but Brad Holmes going out and drafting luxury over need that's a whole nother discussion that we can have. But again, I do think that is a big part of it, and that's we're struggling with it right now. You're seeing it all over the place.
So a couple of things here. So I wanted to pull up some things here on Josh Reynolds real quick. And when you look at Josh Reynolds' targets by down breakdown and where he was on the field. So Jared Goff targeted him more often on third down in the short right and deep left parts of the field, almost consistently, always there. Deep left, 25 yards, and short right, 5-yard route. So he kind of had two routes that, two styles of routes, if you will, that he was running the majority of the time. And what did Josh Reynolds do very often? Like he did complete, for that third down, right? Or even sometimes on fourth down, but that was more rare. Josh Reynolds passing completion percentage breakdown by down. Get this. Short right, 100%. Deep left, 100%. On fourth down, short middle, 100%. First down, short right, 100%. Short left, second down, 100%. The dude was completing everything. Like he hardly ever had a problem dropping a ball or missing a catch. But you are right. I mean, he was he was Jared Goff's, what I like to call the outlet, the safety valve, if you will. Even more so, here you go. Josh Reynolds passing direction breakdown by down. Third down, four times short left, 4 times short middle, 4 times short right, deep left once, deep middle once, and deep right twice. Now, in comparison to that, on second down, he was targeted a little heavier on second down, on the short left and short middle. But he was targeted heavier short right on third down. So, I mean, you really got to look at these. I'd have to pull them up on the screen. But when you look at his overall yardage, he had more yardage on third down than he did on any other down. There's a lot of stats here. There's a lot. I mean, this thing goes nuts. That'll be an interesting video to do later too. I guess I'll park that. So yeah, look, you said a lot of things here. The one thing I won't agree with is, I mean, I do believe that Jared Goff is a good quarterback, and you know what? There's not 10 other quarterbacks that I would put in front of him right now. There's not. There's probably not even 7 that I would put in front of him, and he works well within this offense when this offense is working together. Penei Sewell does seem a little banged up. I think that ankle injury is probably bothering him a little bit. He did have his worst week so far of the season this year. His worst statistical performance, quite honestly, of the season so far. And so did Frank Ragnow. Frank Ragnow had a 54.4 grade. He was rated 24 out of 26. Sam Laporta was our worst rated offensive player of the week. Jared Goff was second. Graham Glasgow was our 9th best rated player. Penei was our 6th. Taylor Decker was our 4th. Kevin Zeitler was our best overall rated player on offense this week. Where is Penei Sewell on here again? Yeah, he's 6th. That's 69.6. And those are just not the numbers that those guys do. Like they never are that low. It was a rough week for him. So on passing downs, or I'm sorry, on run plays. Let me get back into that. Oh, it's not going to give it to me. Blocking. Here we go. On blocking, pass block, Parker Hess was our highest rated pass blocker of the week. Taylor Decker was number 2. Kevin Zeitler was number 3. Brock Wright was number 4. Sam Laporta was number 5. Then Penei Sewell at number 6. And then you have to go all the way down to 12 and 13 for Graham and Ragnow. That's not good. That's not good. Those guys need to be up near the top. Parker Hess should not be your number 1 rated pass blocker of the week. And Brock Wright and Sam Laporta should not be ahead of Penei Sewell. So they had a rough week. You can't put all the blame on Jared Goff. You can put part of the blame on the offensive line for having a sluggish week. You can put a lot of the blame on Dan Campbell for not taking points when points were an option. But let's talk Ben Johnson for a second. Do you feel like Ben Johnson has been figured out to a degree, or are you more in line with my thinking here that it has still been kind of a vanilla offense? I'm expecting more. I'm not seeing the trickery. I'm not seeing, the mixture of alignments where we keep running everything out of the same, just like the Rams do. They run everything out of 11 personnel. And it's getting pretty easy to figure out that when you're under center, you're almost handing the ball off all the time. Jared's barely dropping back to throw a pass from under center. And when he's in shotgun, he's passing the ball. We're not doing any delays. We're not doing any misdirection. We're not being unique enough in our play calls to keep the defense guessing. So what is your take on Ben Johnson? And then let's get into the defense.
So I'm not sure if this happens when you're at the games, but in my section, we're in 140. We'll be sitting there watching the offense, and people will be calling the play out strictly based on the formation.
Yep.
They'll be like, oh, it's a run right. Oh, it's a run left. Oh, Goff's going to the line and Goff's going like this. Anytime Goff does this, anytime it's a run play. Every single time, it's just if we're fans and we're able to catch on to what's going on with Ben Johnson's offense, what are NFL coaches figuring out with his offense, right?
Yeah.
And I think a big issue too, and this is something I wanted to ask you because this also goes to my point of what I wanted to talk about. Do you think Sam Laporta is 100% healthy right now? And what do you equate to this slow start of his? And I mean, when I say slow start, I mean extremely slow start for Sam Laporta and what he's used to doing. I mean, you want to look, what does he have on the season? I think he has 6 receptions for 60 yards or 6 receptions for 58 yards through 2 games. So an extremely slow start for Sam Laporta. And I'm just kind of, I just want to know your take on what you're seeing from him early on, because that'll kind of go into my next point about this.
So it's hard. We've got 1 year, 1 season of Sam Laporta to base all of our judgment on, right? All of our evaluation, I guess is a better word. And that's really tough to put on a rookie last year that played so well, like completely blew the doors off the NFL, had an all-pro season, and you're expecting the same thing in season 2. We know that you're going to have a little bit of regression because teams are going to be scheming against you. That's going to happen. Tight ends rarely have such big seasons like that. Matter of fact, there's typically about 3 tight ends every season that have big seasons. Your Kittles, your Kelseys, they're always up there, right? Right now, Isaiah Likely is the best tight end in the game. George Kittle was, and I heard he got carted off in the game the other night. Brock Bowers is number 3. Hunter Henry is number 4. Mike Gesicki is number 5. And then it completely drops off from 109 yards on the season all the way down to 46. Sam Laporta, hold on here. If it'll let me whittle this down here. I'm sorry. It goes from 90, the 7th rated Zach Ertz of all guys, has 90 yards on the season, and then it drops to 69 at number 8. And then Sam Laporta is in the middle of the field with 58 yards, 6 receptions, 8 targets, 58 yards on the season, has a long of 18. I'm not worried. I just feel like people are expecting 100-yard games out of this guy, and that's just not what tight ends do. And that is not what Sam Laporta did last season, but 1 or 2 games out of the entire season. I'm expecting Sam Laporta to get his 50 yards a game. Like, if he can stay in that range, I'm good with it. That's still got to be, 800 yards a season. So I think that we're a little overreacting on Sam Laporta. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, for this Lions offense to kind of start gelling again and getting things together. I think the defenses have been giving him some fits, and maybe Jared Goff is not taking an opportunity early enough in the play. Look, they need to trust these guys. Jared Goff's just got to sling that ball. I'd rather see him throw 4 interceptions and put us in an opportunity to win a game than to hold the ball and, dink it and dunk it around. I'm not worried about Sam. I think that he'll be fine. He's got 58 yards. He's he's in the middle of the pack. I expect him to be at least in the top 10 this season. I think I had him at 800 yards, 5 touchdowns on the season, somewhere in that 60 catches, on the season is kind of where I had him.
Yeah, so Laporta, I agree. Like, I think the bar was set so high last year that, again, on this show, we talked about it. I called for a little bit of a sophomore slump from him. But it also goes back to how the Bucs and how the Rams played him, right? How did he catch a lot of his passes? A lot of his passes there, he'll line up on the left or the right, run that little drag route, that 5-yard drag route or the 3-yard drag. And that's just not there anymore, right? It's just not available against those defenses. And they really took him out of the game. I do think that you're going to see Laporta kind of pick it up a little bit once teams, once they're playing not teams that they played at the end of last season, right? I think you're going to see the middle of the field open up a little bit more as the season goes on. And, again, when it comes to Laporta, I think we need to temper our expectations, but we also have to keep in mind that he was listed on the injury report all through training camp. Now, whether he was actually hurt or not, but he was on the injury report for most of training camp. And again, it's going to take some time. That's why I think the Lions, I really do. I almost think they're just buying time here for the bye week and then hopefully rest these little lingering injuries a little bit. And with that extra week's rest, they'll be able to kind of come back a little healthier and, be ready for the second half of the season. So when it comes, again, so that's kind of where I'm at with Laporta. One guy I wanted to mention quickly too, that the Lions are using a little bit different, but I'm not sure I love it, is Brock Wright. The Lions went out and matched the 49ers for that contract. And I thought you would see Brock Wright a little bit more involved in the offense. I'm not sure. I think he only has that one catch on the season, the one catch he had in the first game. And I don't think he's been targeted kind of more than once. I think that was the only time he was targeted on the year as well. Yeah, he is. So he has one reception and one target. So again, the creativity that you kind of talked about, I think it's getting guys like Brock Wright more involved. It's getting guys, that you wouldn't normally see and just kind of giving them that opportunity a little bit. So I don't know, man. Like I'm not overreacting about the offense. I'm not trying to freak out about the offense. I do kind of think they're going to come together. I just think Ben Johnson, this is the first little bit of adversity that he's really faced as a coach, because he's basically had his way for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. So again, it's going to be interesting to see what he does, because as bad as Dan Campbell, I mean, you can give Dan Campbell a D- for his coaching in the first 2 games. There's been blunder after blunder after blunder after questionable decision by Dan Campbell, right? So once the coaching staff can kind of figure it out, which I believe they will, I have a lot of faith in this staff. I think they are going to figure it out. And once they do, I think the offense is going to be okay.
Yeah, I do too. And I guess I kind of forgot about the fact that Sam Laporta was off, treating these nagging injuries, I guess, throughout the off season. But that's I guess it's just another reason why I'm not worried about it. I think that Sam Laporta is going to be fine. The question is about Ben Johnson, though. Have defenses, and we'll spend 2 seconds on it. Have defenses really figured him out? Or is this a case of maybe we've just gone up against a couple of really good coach teams, or really well coached teams with some really good defenses to start the season? Let's be honest here. We just had 5 playoff games in a row, right? 5 playoff games in a row. And we've lost 2 of them. I think we're okay. So I think the panic button that a lot of fans are pressing, they need to just relax, man. Like, it's week 3 now. And, if we march into Arizona, a place that we don't have much success in, with the team that I told everyone to watch out for, which I think you said Kyler Murray sucked too, but whatever. I told everyone to watch out for Arizona. And now we're marching into their home, They've got the home field advantage, and they're playing hot. This is lining up for our second loss of the season. I mean, let's just be honest. Our team's banged up. Our defense, which is where we're going to go to next, our defense is making some big plays, but there's some critical lapses. There's some things that are still happening that shouldn't be happening. It's the same thing that's always been happening. Baker Mayfield, I said it from the jump last week in the pregame show. If you let this guy have a sliver of hope and a little bit of daylight, he's going to gas you. And you got 4 or 5 defensive linemen around him within an arm's reach, even hands on the guy. And he just squirts out and goes and gets a first down. Multiple times. I think it was 3 times in this game that he did it. And that's what, in my opinion, was the other reason why we lost this game is the critical play of Baker Mayfield at times to keep that offense moving forward to go get a field goal, which was the beginning of the game. They kicked 2 field goals, right? I believe. Yeah, they kicked 2 field goals and we kicked 2 field goals. So Baker needed to be shut down, and he was at times. But let me give you some stats here, and then let's see where this goes. The defensive stats, according to PFF. Now, this makes no sense to me. Now, week 1, we had like 27 pressures, or 28, whatever the number was. It was a lot of pressures, not a whole lot of sacks. I said my biggest issue with Aiden Hutchinson was his angle to the quarterback. Got to take a better angle, forget the pressure, get the sack. Well, I don't know if he was listening, but this week he had 6 total pressures, of which 5 were sacks, 1 hurry, and that's it. That's it. That's all he had. We had a total of 14 total pressures this week, of which 6 of them were sacks, 6 were hurries, and 2 were quarterback hits. What changed? So we didn't have as much pressure on Baker Mayfield this week. And pressure is not what always wins games, and neither are sacks. You have to have a fine balance. This week, Aiden goes off completely, but we still have issues with allowing Baker Mayfield to get to your containment, right? To get off the edge or running through the middle with a wide open gap, because we don't have a linebacker sitting over the middle like we just talked about a minute ago. We don't have anybody in the middle waiting, right? Playing the middle zone to keep their eyes on Baker, that while this defense is rushing and blitzing and getting after Baker, the chances that he's going to squirt through are, pretty high. It always has been. It's always been our problem, and they did it again this weekend. Am I going to put any of this really on the defense? Very small margin. I think the defense gave us a ton of opportunity to win this game, but what they can't excuse away anymore is allowing a quarterback to continue to gash us like this. Now, he only had like 34 yards, but those are 34 critical yards for first downs that allowed the Tampa Bay Bucks to continue to march down the field. And after he gets the first down, the momentum is really high, and then he gets back under center, and then he whips the ball downfield to Chris Godwin. These things just can't happen. And then the back end of our defense, we're struggling. Terrion Arnold is having a very slow start to his rookie campaign. Now, he's not letting up a ton of yardage, but these penalties is allowing these teams to stay in it. And yeah, they're ticky-tack penalties. Absolutely. I firmly believe in that. The pass interference was not pass interference. And Jared Goff's first interception should have never been an interception. Should have been a penalty called. But Terrion Arnold has got 158 passer rating against in week 2. Carlton Davis, 114 passer rating against in week 2. And both of them, so Terrion Arnold had 100% reception rate against, 3 for 3. Carlton Davis, 4 for 5. Yards per reception, Carlton Davis, 14.3. Terrion Arnold, 24. Yak yardage on Terrion Arnold, his worst performance so far, 36 yards, a long of 41, and 1 TD against Terrion Arnold. So what's going on here with this defense? I mean, great performance by Aiden Hutchinson, absolutely. But what are we looking for now in week 3? How could we put a good mixture of pressure and, ultimately getting the sacks and good back end defense. How can they fix that? I love what they're doing, but we still have these same mistakes over and over and over. And then lastly, man, DJ Reader. Again, I said it from the beginning. DJ Reader was going to be the answer. Interior defensive push was going to be the answer. To unlock another level on this defense, we needed an interior push. Brad Holmes answered the phone call, man. He grabs DJ Reader. He grabs some back-end players, for DBs and free agency and in the draft. But DJ Reader has had the biggest impact so far. In one game that he only played half the snaps, a large majority of all of Aiden's sacks came when DJ Reader was on the field. This is exactly what we needed. So give me your thoughts here on the defense. The sacks really matter? Is pressures more important? Did we really need another defensive end, Coach? Davenport was out, and Aiden had his best game ever with DJ Reader in. I'll let you go. There you go.
So let's start with the Hutch thing. I know you guys watched the game too. It's an extremely frustrating thing to watch the Lions play against mobile quarterbacks. And this is a knock I've had against the Lions since going back to last season. If you watch that game, again, go back and watch the tape. There are so many plays when Baker, especially in the third and fourth quarter, where you can see that Hutch's job was just to contain the outside and don't let Baker get outside on a run. There was a play that they showed a replay on. It was one of Baker's big runs that he had, and they showed the replay. And it just, again, if we could show it, I would, because it just describes exactly what I'm talking about. There's a play where Hutchinson goes to the outside, and he has a chance to get around the tackle. But Hutchinson literally stops in his tracks, and he's standing there with Baker Mayfield standing 3 yards away from him. But Hutch was scared to go and try and get him because he didn't want Baker to break to the outside, give up contain, because that's what you're coached, right? As a D-end, everyone thinks that a D-end's job is just to get the quarterback. That's not the case. When you're playing guys who can run, the defensive end's job is to not let the quarterback escape the pocket, right? You want to force them inside. So a lot of times you'll see these D-ends just form up on the tackles. And to see Hutch do that when he was sitting on 4.5 sacks was borderline infuriating to me. Because, again, all he had to do was one quick rip, one quick swim to the inside. He had a chance to get Baker, but he didn't because of the scheme that Aaron Glenn ran in that situation. My concern with this team and this defense is mobile quarterbacks. I'm one of the few people on earth who have them going under 500 this year.
Oh, boy. Okay?
Yeah, I'm throwing it out there. I said it before the season. I say it now. And why is that?
You sure about that?
I'll tell you why. Here's why.
You sure about that?
I am, and here's why. Look at all the losses the Lions had last year. The Lions lost every single game to a mobile quarterback they played last year. So let's go over the rest of the schedule. Cardinals, Kyler Murray. You talked about this. I like Kyler Murray. I don't mind him at all. I think Arizona beats us by double digits this week. I don't even think it's close. I think Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison are going to go off. I really do. Seahawks. The Lions have proven in the last 3 years they just can't beat Seattle. They just can't, right? Everyone can say what they want. Seattle has taken it to us. They have our number. Geno Smith is the real deal, right? I'm so sick of all this. Is Geno Smith a good football player? Geno Smith is a really good football player. He's a mobile quarterback. Dak Prescott, he's mobile. So I think that's a loss. People I think we can beat the Vikings, the Texans, because, again, they don't have those mobile quarterbacks. The Packers, we'll see where Jordan Love is. CJ Stroud we play this year, right? CJ Stroud's going to just do a number against us. Anthony Richardson, another guy, Josh Allen. We play so many mobile quarterbacks this year because that's what you're seeing. So until the Lions prove they can beat a mobile quarterback, The last mobile quarterback they beat was Justin Fields, okay, and the Chicago Bears last year, right? So it's one of those things where until they do it, I don't believe in it. And they've given us no reason to believe, and Aaron Glenn has given us zero reason to believe that he knows what he's doing and how to stop a quarterback who can run. So I'm extremely concerned about it. You want to talk about defensive ends? You want to talk about, what we have at that position or what we don't have? We have Aiden Hutchinson and a bunch of guys who would not be in the NFL if they weren't on the Lions. That's how bad the defensive end depth is right now, in my opinion.
But hold on.
Fair enough.
Hold the phone. So, look, I've been going back and forth on this with just about everybody. Everyone cries about defensive end. I mean, did you guys not just watch what happened this weekend? You install an interior defensive lineman named DJ Reader, who's really good at his job, next to another really good defensive lineman, Ali McNeil. Aiden is able to do his job, right? Even though he failed at times with containment, yes. And I actually thought on that play, by the way, when he stopped, I was actually taken aback for a minute. I'm like, whoa. Like, Aiden actually stayed where he was supposed to stay. He didn't let Baker get outside for the first time ever. But it didn't help on that play, clearly. Look, we didn't need another defensive end. We brought in Marcus Davenport, who had a really good first week for what it was. And he was out of the game this week. And Aiden was able to do what he was with what you're saying are crap defensive ends that wouldn't even be on another NFL team. So no, the answer was not another defensive end. It was DJ Reader. That was the answer. As long as we have two powerful interior defensive linemen, I don't care who you have for defensive end, they're going to be able to make hay, and make it rain when they need it to rain. They need crops to grow. They're going to get after it. And I think the proof is what we just witnessed. Now, Aiden obviously is one of the better pass rushers in the league. Yes, he does have a lot of mental errors and mistakes. He does a couple of things really well. He does a few things really good. But he also does a couple of things that, are below average. And the other day I was looking at something after the game because he missed Baker Mayfield on a couple of opportunities where, Baker was bottled up and he just couldn't get to it. Like, he couldn't pull him down. He couldn't keep his, I know it says his hands are like 10.5 inches or whatever, but I was looking at his hands in the gloves on a play. His hands look small to me. And I know he's got short arms. And I think that's a big reason why these quarterbacks are getting outside more often than not, because Aiden can't reach and grab these guys like a lot of other ends can. Look at Danielle Hunter's arms and how long there's a reason why quarterbacks do not get outside of him very often. Look at Micah Parsons' arms. Look at Bosa's arm. I mean, you look at a lot of these guys, they have long arms. Davenport has extremely long arms. That is why quarterbacks do not get outside of Davenport. You will not see outside containment broken by Davenport this whole season. I'll put that call out there right now. He is so intelligent and disciplined at playing that position and takes proper angles. And this weekend we saw Aiden finally take some better angles, but it was when he got behind Baker, right? He goes too deep and then comes back. That's when Baker is able to skirt out the side or skirt up the middle. And that's what I'm worried about. But I'm going to stick to this. The answer was interior defensive line. There's no reason why we needed another defensive end. And you guys saw the proof. There's some people out there that thought that we would get like no sacks this year, less than 28. And clearly we're winning already in the sack department. But anyway, I'll let you continue going here.
Yeah, but again, this is where Brad Holmes, for everything he does well, he has this sense of arrogance about him that, he's the smartest guy in the room a lot of times. Okay, you bring up, you make some good points. However, Aiden Hutchinson had 5 sacks and we lost. So,
yeah,
great.
So that was my whole point. Do sacks really matter?
Yeah. So good for the Lions. They got, Hutchinson had a good game, but the entire other side, it's almost like, nobody cares about Josh Pascal. No one's scared of these guys. No one's scared of like a James Houston, who is a healthy scratch already this season, right? We have to have somebody on the other side of the field who is a capable NFL football player. And we don't. What do you think teams are going to do, right? Teams are going to come in. They're going to run max protect to this whatever side Hutchinson's on. They're going to go max protect there. And then the other side of the field, they're just going to, teams are going to blitz the opposite side, and we're going to be screwed all season. Like, I could not disagree more. And this Marcus Davenport, I was a big Davenport supporter when they made the signing. I came on the show and talked about how great I think he is and how good the signing is. But Davenport is like DJ Reader. I don't trust either of them to stay healthy. I just don't, right? I could be proven wrong.
That I can agree with. I mean, it's week 2 and he's already out with a groin. I get it.
Yeah. So if they're out though, Will, what do we have, man?
Nothing.
We got nothing.
Then we're in trouble. We're in trouble. If we don't have DJ Reader or Davenport, we're in trouble. If we have one or the other, we are a much better team. As long as we have DJ Reader in the game, we're fine. We are absolutely fine. Matter of fact, if we were to lose Aiden Hutchinson and we had DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport and James Houston and Josh Pascal, I would still say we're going to be fine. And I know that's a crazy call out, but we haven't seen it yet either. So I'm sure I'll get scathing reviews off of that. But I do believe we would still be able to work these offenses because of the fact that the interior pass rush or the interior pressure is so good. I mean, it was insane how effective they were against this. Well, I guess it was kind of a patchwork offensive line. And I guess that's my biggest knock on Aiden. And look, I'm not a Hutch hater. I've been put in that box. I'm just realistic. Okay. The stats are what they are. They don't lie. Since Aiden's last year in college, and I wanted to ask you this today, so that's why I'm bringing it up. He struggled against really good offensive lines. He had the large majority of his sacks came against offensive lines ranked 80th or worse in the FBS. He had 4 sacks, 3 against Ohio State, 1 against Michigan State. The other 15 came against the worst rated offensive lines in college. Translate that to the NFL. If you go and look where he's had all of his sacks, it's against the worst offensive lines in the league. Or it's against third tier, offensive linemen that are filling in like we saw this. I mean, Justin Skule is who he beat up this weekend. And we have DJ Reader in there, which means they're not able to double or chip or slide any protection to Aiden Hutchinson's side as often. What's going to happen this weekend against an Arizona offensive line is my question. I haven't looked at their injury report. I haven't looked to see how well they're even playing, but it'll be interesting to see if they are healthy and they have all of their starters, what are we going to see? So what do you think about that stat? It's legit. Trust me, I've done the research. And then I can put it all together again and show you, but assuming what I just told you is real, right, and legit, what do you think?
I think it says a lot because, again, it goes back to why I think this Lions team isn't as good as everyone says they are. And it goes back to this. You want to talk about injuries real quick? Let's talk about injuries. We barely beat the Rams. Rams had, 4 starting offensive linemen hurt?
Exactly.
And we barely beat them. You're playing against a Bucs team who was missing their best defensive end, I would say their best defensive player, right? They were missing their safety, their ball hawk safety, right? They're all pro safety. And the Lions couldn't move the ball on offense, or they couldn't score. Sorry, they could move the ball. They couldn't finish drives. So you're playing against 2 teams who were decimated by injury. And one of them, could have won, and the other one did win, right? So there are, people don't want to hit the panic button, but let's be honest, it's not all roses and butterflies with this team right now, and there's lots of areas of concern. So back to kind of what you were talking about a lot of about the DNs and the rushing and the passing.
Yeah, real quick before you go there.
Yeah.
I said that Minnesota was going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. Okay, yes. Based on what they did with the middle of their defense, bringing in guys, the Van Ginkels, the Cashmans, they have Ivan Pace, I believe, too, right? So they have 11 total team sacks. They are number 1 in the league right now. Houston is number 9, and they added, Hunter, and who's the other? Autry, and they have Anderson. I mean, so they have like a stacked defense, and they only have 9 sacks on the season. Minnesota is ahead of them, and the Lions are right behind them, tied for third with like 8 other teams: New Orleans, Cleveland, Arizona, Baltimore, Dallas, New York Jets. So we are going up against an Arizona team that can get sacks. So I don't really know where I'm going with this. I just wanted to throw the stats numbers out there to show you guys that all the sacks that we just got from one player now put us into the category, of top 3 in the league. And I think it's all due to interior pressure. But when you add a guy like Danielle Hunter to a Houston team, they only have 9 sacks. They should be leading the league if defensive end was the only answer to any team. And it's not the case. You've got Minnesota leading the league. Well, they lost Danielle Hunter, right? They should be regressing big time. Yeah. But no, they firmed up their linebacker room. All right, go ahead.
So my thing about the defense that's actually impressed me, we'll start with what's impressed me this year with the defense, is the position that I have been most critical of for the last 3 seasons. I think their linebacking core has played exceptionally well early on this season, especially in the run game. And Alex Anzalone, he's a guy who I've been very critical of, throughout my time. And the reason being is I would always say, yeah, sure, he makes 10 tackles a game, but 8 of them are, 10 yards downfield. Throughout the first 2 games this season, I don't know how many tackles he's had. I haven't checked the stats for that. I can do that quickly. But what he really caught my eye watching the Anzalone, has 17 tackles, 13 solo. He's got 3 tackles for loss so far this season, right? He's a guy who, when you're watching games live, linebackers don't often stand out, right? Well, you can attest to this because, they're in the middle of the field. That's where all the players are. Sometimes they get lost in the shuffle a little bit. Alex Anzalone has been playing outstanding football the first 2 weeks of the season. I know he's out with a concussion right now or with a possible head injury, but I've been really impressed by his game. Another guy who caught my eye last game and who got more defensive snaps than I was, anticipating. And again, this is kind of one of the few unfortunate things about watching games live, and especially inside Ford Field, because it's hard to get Wi-Fi, is we don't get a lot of the context as to what's going on in terms of injuries or, why guys are playing, and we don't get all the commentary, right? But one guy who really caught my eye a lot has been Malcolm Rodriguez playing defense. He has been all over the field so far this year, making plays. And Derek Barnes keeps improving. Jack Campbell.
Jack's got some growing. He's got some growing pains right now.
I like his game. I like what he has to offer. I find it extremely concerning that he's not playing as much as, other guys, right? Out of the linebacking core, he played a little bit more against the Bucs than he did against the Rams. But his snap count against the Rams, it couldn't have been very high. I feel like he probably was on the field for less than half the game defensively. But again,
against the Rams?
Yeah, against the Rams.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I could find it for you real quick.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be some growing pains with Jack Campbell, but that's okay because our other guys are playing outstanding football right now. And they're kind of the bread and butter of what we're doing. You talked about the secondary, right? You talked about Arnold. You talked about Davis. For some reason, I'm not overly concerned because those penalties against Arnold,
complete bull crap.
Well, you know what? He's a rookie corner, and you can like it or not. You saw it last night in the game. You see it all over the league. Rookie corners almost have to earn that respect, it seems, or they almost have to earn the referees, benefit of the doubt, in certain situations. And I'm not worried about Arnold because he's been playing, he's all over his man. He's in the right position. He's making some good tackles. My concern would be is if he wasn't in position to make the play, right? And he is in position to make the play more times than not, right? So I'm not too concerned about him. Davis, there was some concern with Davis coming into this year. I know he was good last year, But again, he's just one of those guys. I was expecting more, especially against the Bucks. It was almost like the Bucks were targeting him in that game, if you noticed, right? They kept going at wherever he was. And that was extremely telling because the Bucks know him. There was a report from earlier in the week. I think was it Dan Campbell or I wasn't sure who said it. Maybe it was Ben Johnson.
So hold on, back up. Time out. So Carlton Davis, I mean, what was odd is Baker only threw 19 balls?
Yeah.
Like the whole game.
Not
yeah.
many.
I mean, in Carlton, he had 5 of those targets. So he was the most targeted player. He had 5 on 4 catches, right? And then Terrian obviously was the second most targeted. The linebackers were targeted, 4 times. Amik Robertson was targeted twice. Kirby and Brian Branch were targeted 3 times combined. So, the linebackers had a better coverage week than expected. I mean, they were 50%. But our corners, outside of Brian Branch was 50%. Amik had a better game. He was 50%. But Terrian and Carlton, they were 180% respectively. I mean, they just they didn't have the greatest of games. But anyway, I'll digress.
Yeah. No, it's all good. What I was going to say about Carlton Davis was Carlton Davis came out and gave, again, I forget who said it, Campbell or Johnson. They said that he gave the best breakdown of the Tampa Bay wide receivers that they'd have ever seen. Right. And, it was a great presentation. And I was a little bit concerned or just, I don't know what the right word is. Disappointed maybe is the right word. I was disappointed that if Carlton Davis knows these receivers better than anybody, because he's been going up against them for 6 years, and these guys are still able to toast him in a game, that's a little bit concerning to me, right? But
I mean, we're talking Evans and we're talking Godwin. I mean,
for sure.
I mean, I think that they actually held their own pretty good. I mean, the guy that got burned here was, I believe, was it Amik that was on Godwin? Did Amik get charged with that big play?
Was that, or was it, yeah.
Was it Amik or was it, here, hold on. I can look for the long. Rakestraw wasn't in. He was out.
He didn't even play that game.
So hold on here. Where's the long? I'm trying to find the long.
The long play. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, so they charged Terrian Arnold with that.
Okay, fair enough. But I just, again, I just think it takes time for the secondary to get to work together. These
Absolutely.
guys, again, didn't play much in the preseason. It's going to take a little bit of time to get their feet wet. I'm not overly concerned about it. And I think part of that has to do with the play of the linebackers early on. And I absolutely love Kirby Joseph and Branch at the safety position. I love what they have to offer. I love how they're go-getters. They're not scared to go up and make a play. They can tackle, they can cover. I really like their game. My whole area of concern, again, comes to the other, it comes down to the D line and the lack of pressures or the lack of sacks that we can get. Now, what's your way around that, right? We've talked about this a little bit before. Is Aaron Glenn smart enough or able to put together a defensive scheme that involves some blitzing or bringing in some linebackers, some corner blitzes? He doesn't do it very often, but when he does it, it's effective. So at what point is he going to start, adding that in a little bit more, right? We talk about Ben Johnson and his creativity. Aaron Glenn needs to kind of get a little more creative as well. Aaron Glenn needs to, mix things up a little bit here. So my big issue going in is I do think the Lions need another wide receiver, and I think they need a defensive end. And the nice thing is they are in a position to do it with the salary cap, right? Brad Holmes has them in a great spot cap-wise if they did want to go out and get somebody, or if there was somebody that they kind of had in mind. The only issue is they don't have a whole, we've talked about this, but Holmes has traded quite a few picks away in this year's draft, and he has them all except a third and a fourth, I think, still.
No, so, we have all but our third next year, but we have 2 sevenths. We will have a third round pick. We will.
Yeah.
Real quick, So you did call out the Jack Campbell snaps for the Rams. he was on the field for 56% of the snaps versus the Rams. He was on the field for 73% of the snaps versus the Bucs. So yeah, he didn't play as much in the Rams game. And look, I thought that Jack was kind of struggling in that game, to be honest with you. Anzalone
better against the Bucs though.
Yeah, but Anzalone kind of kicked him down. He was in the wrong spot again, but Anzalone was making all the calls. I mean, so Jack is supposed to be the mic by now, and he's still not calling the plays. So I think that there's something there. I love Jack and what he's all about and what he will be. I have no worries about Jack Campbell. Again, it's early, but let me get your opinion here. I know you just said that you still think we need another defensive end. I'm still going to poo-poo on that because we just proved again with DJ Reader in and Davenport out, and you can't stand all the other linebacker or not all the other defensive ends on this team, which are hybrid guys, right? They're inside outside guys. Josh Paschal is a heavier defensive end if he wanted, and he's more of a big end. He's not your pass rushing lighter end like Aiden Hutchinson. We got 5 sacks with DJ Reader in and Aiden Hutchinson and Lee McNeil. And who cares on the right side, according to you? So why do we need another defensive end? And do you honestly, can you argue the fact that DJ Reader was the biggest impact in this game without having any stats? And I say it all the time, the guys that do not show up on the stat board are some of the guys that have the biggest impact in the game because of what they are doing. They're doing the dirty work. They're not showing up in the stats. Who cares? Aiden got all the stats. DJ did all the dirty work. Aleem did all the dirty work. Agree or disagree?
I agree. What I'm saying is I'm not saying we need to go out and get, the next, another Aiden Hutchinson, or we need to go out and get a Danielle Hunter. I'm not saying we need to go get that. What I'm saying is we need somebody who's a proven NFL quality player, right, at that position. I don't, Josh Paschal, I love what he has to offer. I don't know, man. I'm kind of curious as to what you think about him because I really like his size. I like his length. I love what he has to offer. I love his motor. There just seems to be something. It's almost like the Jack Campbell thing. There just seems to be something missing with him, right? And I really wish there was a way that he could kind of put it all together. James Houston, James Houston's a one-trick pony, right? You put him in on 3rd and long. Hopefully he can get a sack, right? That is all he can do. And we don't need him for that. I really struggle with what we have there and the lack of depth. That's the issue. It's the lack of depth that we have. And I think it's going to come back to bite us at some point because, again, I don't think you can rely on these guys.
Yeah.
So what's your take on Paschal? That's a guy that you and I haven't really talked a whole lot about.
Well,
but, I think see what he can do.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of issues. One, the Lions have 5 guys on IR in the back end or on this defense. So some of the guys, are third stringers like Bada or I don't even remember who all the guys are on IR, but Kaminsky, he's on IR. So let me just pull this up real quick. I went through this the other day. We're missing, so we are thin, right? We do have some guys that are injured and we need other guys to step up. So on the defense, you got Nate Lynn, left defensive end. He's on IR. Broderick Martin on IR. John Kaminsky on IR. David Bada on IR. Marcus Davenport was out of this game. Now, those guys have been on IR. They didn't, start the season at all. So we are down to Aiden and Houston and Josh Paschal for this last game. Those were your ends. That's it. That's all we had. Those were your ends. They obviously were going heavier on the defensive line. Mekhi Wingo was out there at times. Levi O was out there at times. But that's all we had. So we only had 3 defensive ends, of which James Houston played 3 freaking snaps. So he didn't even really play. So we had 2 defensive ends this entire game that are listed as ends. And yeah, I'd say we are thin. I would say that could use another one because of that reason. I don't think that we need a top flight $15, $20 million a year guy. No, I would have loved to see AJ Epinesa added to this team in this offseason. I thought he was a perfect fit, and it didn't happen. So, yeah, I think that we need some good quality depth, but I think that we're fine. As far as Josh Pascal goes, look, this guy's been injured too much. Through the first 2 seasons, he really never found his footing at all. He really never got off to a good start. Last season, I think he had 13, 14, 15 pressures. That was it. He played about 260 snaps or something like that. Just not good details, right? Just he's not doing what we're expecting him to do. He's had 22 career games before this season and only 3 sacks. He's got a lot to prove. But I think that the jury's still out on him because he hasn't been able to play. You know, even when he has been healthy and been able to play, he wasn't getting all the snaps. He wasn't getting all the work. He's an oft injured guy. He's going to be a guy rolling into his 4th season next year. That's going to have to be a make or break season. And what I don't like about that, for me, is that if he has a decent year next year because of DJ Reader or whoever, or this year because of DJ Reader, being inserted, and you've got a really good, defensive front, he's going to end up sticking around on this team. Whereas and he'll probably get another contract, which I hate to see that, guys go into their 4th season, if they're, a 2nd round pick or later, and they have to play for a contract and they have a pretty decent year, and then they end up getting this contract, and then they're going to go right back to being the guy that they were. I don't think that's the case for Aleem McNeil. I'm very surprised that the deal's not done. Obviously, they want too much money. But that's my concern about Josh Pascal. He has not shown enough at all, not even close. He's extremely inconsistent. He's injured way too often. So, he's still trying to put a full season together. So I'm not impressed, with that pick so far. But, Brad's not going to hit on all of them. And, I do think that, next year the Lions are playing this roster roulette the right way. They're probably going to add another defensive end next year because they're going to sign Aiden. And anytime you sign a player, you should probably be backing it up with a rookie so that your cap can stay manageable. And you got another guy in the pipeline, right? He's going to be dropping out of the funnel when Aiden's getting done with his 2nd contract. And then you're giving him his 2nd contract, and it may not be that much money. So, yeah, I do think the Lions will add somebody through the draft next year. I think that they're going to add a defensive tackle in the draft next year. I think that they're going to add a ex-receiver in the draft next year. And I think those are probably your 3 main targets, and probably another linebacker. Those 4 picks, I'm calling it now. I'm gonna bookmark this video because those are going to be the picks that we get early in next year's draft, in my opinion, from what I see right now. But to answer your question, Josh Pascal, he's got a long way to go. I'm not impressed so far. He's got a long way to go.
So one guy that I want to throw out to you too, that I would like the Lions to consider, and I've been screaming for this all off season, is Yannick Ndigwe from the defensive end that we've seen. I can never pronounce his last name.
Ngakwe or whatever.
Yeah. He is the exact type of player that I think we need right now. Again, he's not the type. He's not going to go out and get you all those sacks. But he's almost like Marcus Davenport, but a step up from Davenport, right? He's one of those guys that you can rely on, who knows how to play the edge. He knows how to set the edge. He's got a good work ethic, kind of fits into the system a little bit. And that's a guy that I can see the Lions going out and grabbing. I believe he's still out there, right? I don't think he's been signed yet by anybody. And that's kind of surprising to me because he's only, he's not even 30 years old yet. So I'm a little bit shocked to see him still sitting out there. And I think he's waiting for the right position or the right situation to kind of, come forward and manifest itself. And maybe that's a phone call that Brad Holmes needs to consider making. Because, again, I do think it's an area, a serious area of concern.
So he suffered a pedal ankle or something in late last season. That's a tough injury. It was a full fracture. So he may not, I'm sure he's healthy now, but how healthy? He's 29-ish years old. Look, I don't, if he hasn't been signed yet, there's 2 obvious reasons why. 1, he wants too much money. Or 2, Well, maybe there's 3 reasons. He's not a good fit. Or 3, he's got other issues. Brad Holmes doesn't want to take a risk on. I've seen other people, want, Ngakoue to come to this team. If it was a match, it would have been done by now. Last season, let's just look. He had, he played all the way through December. He had 11 tackles, 6 assists, 4 sacks. His overall grade was a 39.9. Not great. Not great at all. If you're going to take grades into consideration. Now, if you go back to 2022, if my screen would load, he had a 51.4. He had 13 tackles, 4 assists, 12 sacks, which is huge, right? It's a big year. But why only a 51.4? His run defense grade is terrible. He only played in close to 700 snaps in 2022. So something's off. Like something's not right if he's not getting picked up, especially if you have 12 sacks in the last couple of years. He had 10 sacks in 2021. In 2020, he had 7 sacks, and he had much better grades. So something's got to be really off with this guy as to the reason why no one's picking him up.
But if he were to come to Detroit, we're not going to be asking him to be a starter. We're not going to be asking him to go out there and play 30 snaps a game, right? We're going to go out there and we're going to ask him maybe to play 10 to 15 snaps a game, kind of fill in that defensive end, that give us that little extra pass rush that we might need from time to time. And the Lions' run defense is so stout. I mean, what's that stat now? How many games has it been since they've allowed a 100-yard rusher? It's borderline an NFL record if it's not already. It's pretty close. But there's some ridiculous stat where I believe they've gone, I want to say 30-some games without giving up a 100-yard rusher.
I don't know if it's been quite that much, but
it's been quite a few. They were on quite the little run there, quite the little stretch. And it might date back to the beginning of the 2023 season. So it's probably 23, 24 games. Yeah, it's something incredible. It's an incredible stat. So we don't need him to come in and worry about the run and be a run stopper, right? Just come in and kind of do your job, which is what I want to see this team do.
Here's the stat right here.
Yeah.
So since December 24th of 2022, the Lions have not allowed 100+ yards to an opposing running back. So I assume that they're delineating this with just one individual person, as opposed to all yards. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the stats, but I mean that's a really good run. So you're talking 3-4 games from December 24th. All of last year. Which is 20 games. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at 26, 27, 28 games, something like that.
So there was one game where Justin Fields rushed for 100 yards against us, but he wasn't a running back. So they're specifically talking about running back. They haven't allowed a running back to get 100 yards on them. And, again, I just think that that's something that it's their run defense is stout. It's always going to be the concern is their pass defense. So one thing I wanted to ask you quickly, though, before we kind of, just to kind of end this on a bit of a hot note here, if we can. You and I haven't done this together yet, and I know we didn't talk about this before, but what did you have the Lions' final record being this season before? And what do you have their final record being now after 2 games and kind of what you've seen from this team? And has your opinion changed at all?
Okay, so I was 14-3. Okay. I had our first loss coming against Arizona. So let me open up my sheet here. Yeah, I was 14-3, and I had our first loss against Arizona. I thought that we would take one early. Now that loss just happened against the Bucs. Yes, this is going to be a very difficult game this weekend, but the Lions have never lost or have not lost 2 in a row in a very long time, and I don't think that starts this weekend. I had them beating Seattle. It is a much-needed bye week. I know a lot of us were not happy with the bye week because it was so early, but honestly, this is a perfect bye week situation now because the Lions have some injuries like you alluded to earlier. They need to kind of reset. They need those 2 weeks to dial in and figure out what the hell's going on. You get through your preseason. You get through this first quarter. If you can end up 2-2 or 3-1, it would be 3-1 or 2-2. That's a win. Like, that's totally fine for me. The only other games that I saw them having trouble with was the Texans and the last game of the season against the Vikings, because I thought it would be a meaningless game and they might have to, or could rest some players at that point. So 14-3. I think the bottom for this team is 13-4. Maybe as low as 12-5, and they match what they did last season. I'm not panicking, dude. I'm good. I'm totally, as long as they can flip flop, and trade a crappy loss to the Bucks for a good win against the Cardinals this weekend, there should be no worries. If they drop 2 in a row, guess what? I'm still not panicking. As long as they get out of the bye week and go and beat the damn Cowboys and beat the Vikings and beat the Titans and beat the Packers, I'm good. Like, those are must-win games. They have to beat every single one of those teams after the bye week. If they drop one to the Texans, so be it. But they better beat the Jags. The Colts has got a good defense. I just don't trust their offense right now. The Bears are terrible. And who knows what we're going to get with the Packers? We just don't know. But I'd be worried about the Vikings, like I said in just a few weeks ago, that the Vikings are going to be a very good team. Matter of fact, I had the Vikings finish 4th on my list, but that was done first preseason game. I haven't changed it yet, so I'm going to have to make an update now. I said to watch out for the Vikings, but my record predictor back there did not agree with what my mind was thinking, I guess. So that's where I'm at. I still can't believe Willis pulled this game out of his ass this weekend. I can't believe it.
I mean, just to touch upon that real fast, Green Bay still doesn't scare me. I don't know what Tennessee was thinking and what the Colts strategy was in that game. I mean, it was almost like they were playing to not let Malik Willis beat them, which makes no sense at all, right? Why are you playing, you don't want the run game to beat you. You want to force Malik Willis to beat you. And the Colts did the complete opposite in that game. So frustrating. So, Will, I'm going to come at you a little bit here about this. You kind of sound like
the record.
Yeah, you're reminding me of these new Lions fans, right? All of these new Lions fans. No, I know you're not a new Lions fan. I know that. But you're reminding me of them, right? All these new Lions fans that come out of the blue don't really, I got to watch what I say. Don't really know the history, I guess we'll say. And they don't understand what is going on in terms of what the history of this team is. And it's almost like we have one good season and now everybody thinks we're Super Bowl contenders, right? Without looking at all these little, it's almost like they have blinders on in a sense. And I'm not sure how can you ignore the red flags? How can you ignore the fact that this offense is stagnant and not doing anything? How can you ignore the fact that we can't beat mobile quarterbacks? We just can't. That's a fact. We cannot beat them. So how can you ignore all this and still expect this 14-3 season?
Because of this guy right here. Oh, dropping stuff.
Yeah.
Because we got history, man. And you know what? The history hasn't been so nice to us. And we've got good history. We got good mojo right now. We do. I'm not worried about one loss. I'm absolutely not. I'm worried about the fact that Dan Campbell had a blunder. Okay. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about having an extremely broken bullcrap, kind of call there, at the end of this fourth quarter. I feel like this. Dan Campbell did not sleep at a Holiday Inn before this game. That's how I feel. Jake Bates did. Jake Bates is 100% on the season. But Dan Campbell, he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I kind of felt throughout the week that he was kind of having a tough week. If you go back and listen to his press conferences, he just seemed a little bit off. He didn't have the answers. He didn't seem with it. I don't know if he's just extremely tired, but I promise you, if you go back and listen to his press conferences, I'm going to challenge all of you, go listen to them. And you come back and report to me tomorrow on what you saw. Because what I noticed was a Dan Campbell that seemed tired. He did not seem like he had, media's asking him questions and he just kind of looked lost at times. We're repeating himself often. That's my biggest concern right now, is that Dan Campbell had a huge blunder in this game. This game was still winnable. It was, come on, you got less than 60 seconds. You got 3 timeouts. You get the ball back. That's insane. And you're within scoring position and you don't kick a field goal. They could have won the game twice there at the end of this fourth quarter. And once at the end, of the second half or the second quarter. But you have a boneheaded play and you run the clock out now and you have to go in because it was a 10-second runoff, right? Look, I'm not worried. I'm really not. I think the Lions are going to be fine. I'm definitely not a new Lions fan. 25 years season ticket holder. Been a fan since I was 4 years old that I can remember at my first game at the Pontiac Silverdome. And I only know that because there was pictures of me on the field. Yeah. But anyway, Lions are going to be fine, man. So what's your score prediction then? What's your record? What do you think the Lions are going to do this year?
Going into this year, I had them at 7-10 or 8-9. I really did, and I strictly based that. I listen. Bring it. I can let's go because
no, hold on. What team? What games do you see us losing?
Let's go over it. I have it right here. I have the schedule.
And you said this before the season, right? I'm sure you did.
I said it before the season. Yeah, I was saving it because I wasn't sure if we were going to have a prediction show.
You're the one that's got to sleep, not me. So you roll with it.
Yeah. No. So I have us losing to Arizona. Okay. I have us losing to Seattle.
Hold on. I gotta write this down.
Yep.
I gotta write this down. Bono.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Bono, don't hit a tree while you're skiing, buddy.
I know. I really don't. I think Seattle's had our number. Everyone thinks Seattle's going to be a lock, right? Geno Smith has our number. That whole team just knows what they're doing, and they come to play against Detroit.
So you have us dropping 3 in a row?
I do.
Did you have us beating the Bucks?
I did have us beating the Bucks. I had us beating the Rams and beating the Bucks.
Okay, so we're 2-2 at the bye.
2-2. Yeah, I have them losing to Dallas because Dak's just gonna do a number on
Dak
us.
Sucks.
I know people think that, but hey, listen. He's mobile.
You want to talk about overpaid average quarterbacks that can't do anything in the postseason? There's your guy.
Yeah, but he's a really good regular. Sunday.
He's good against bad teams.
He's a really good regular season quarterback.
Aiden Hutchinson's going to have 5 more sacks in that game. Yeah. As long as DJ Reader's healthy.
I have us beating Minnesota and I have us beating Tennessee.
Okay.
Green Bay is a question mark right now. If Jordan Love is healthy and he plays at Green Bay, I think Green Bay beats us at Green Bay.
You got to pick one, win or a loss, no matter who's in.
I'm going to say a loss with the assumption that he's healthy.
Okay.
I think Houston beats us.
Oh my goodness.
I think we beat Jacksonville.
We better.
I think the Colts. Okay, again, I'm going to go with my preseason stuff. I think the Colts, before the season, I had the Colts beating us. So I'm going to stick with that. I think the Colts beat us. I think Anthony Richardson really figures it out. And I think he is going to run for 100 yards against the Lions. I really do. I think we beat the Bears at home. I think we lose to Green Bay.
Again? At home?
I said we beat Green Bay. I said we lost. Sorry. I think we beat Green Bay at home. Sorry. I had us winning at home. I have us losing to Buffalo. I think Josh Allen is just going to torch us in that game. And I think Buffalo, everyone's kind of been low on Buffalo before the season. I was extremely high on Buffalo. I think them losing Diggs is actually a benefit for them. And they're one of my teams to watch this season.
Buffalo always gets out. They always get out hot and they collapse at the end.
That's right. I originally had us losing at Chicago because I don't trust Goff in cold weather games. I just don't.
He won week 18 in Green Bay in a snowstorm.
Yeah. That being said, though, I don't trust Caleb Williams either, right? I don't know how good Caleb Williams is going to be. So I actually think the Lions win that game in Chicago.
All he has to do is paint his nails, and he's going to have too much wind drag. He's not going to be able to throw that football.
That's right. I don't think we beat San Francisco. I know Brock Purdy's not a mobile quarterback. San Francisco's
he may not be a dual threat, but he's definitely mobile. He killed us in the NFC Championship game with his leg, just like Baker did.
Yeah, he did, absolutely. But he's not your prototypical what you think about mobile quarterback. You're not going to name Brock Purdy as one of your top 5 or 10 guys. But I do think that they beat us on Monday night. And finally, the Minnesota game, I think, I had us down for a win. I didn't think Minnesota, I know you had Minnesota being pretty good this year on the defensive side of the ball, but I just don't trust Sam Darnold. And I didn't think J.J. McCarthy was going to be much better there. So I had us winning that game as well. So that was what I had early on in the season, and that's kind of where I'm sticking right now.
3, 4. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why can't I add today? I can't read it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's 9 and 8.
Yeah. So I gave us an extra win. In my original one, I had us losing one of the games to the Bears. But again, I don't think the Bears are going to be there, which is, they're kind of shocking to me. If we want to, talk quickly about the other NFC North teams, Ryan Poles and the Bears, I think Ryan Poles actually did the best possible job of setting up a team for a first round pick to come in. And Caleb Williams has everything around him to be successful. The question is how long is it going to take for him, right? That's why I hated the fact that when the schedule came out that the Lions didn't play the Bears until week 13, right? It would have been nice to get them early in the season while Caleb Williams is still learning. But it is concerning to me that we play them in week 13 and week 16. That's lots of time for them to kind of, get everything together in a sense. But again, that's what I see with this team. I don't see this team as this, Super Bowl contender that other people see it as. And again, until they kind of change my mind, until I see Jared Goff, until I see this offense get back to where they were, until I see this defense, actually be able to stop a passing game or stop a mobile quarterback, I have my concerns. I really have my concerns. And Dan Campbell, 2 terrible games. We didn't even have a chance today to talk about the onside or about the choice to kick off with 17 seconds left, in the first game against the Rams. You want to talk about things that drove me absolutely bonkers. And this is something the league hasn't fully figured out yet.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Go ahead. Go talk about it.
Yeah, so the Lions had the lead right at the end of the Rams game. There was 17 seconds left in the game, I believe, when they kicked that extra.
Oh, yeah, you mean they kicked it inbound or kicked it
through the end zone.
Through the end zone, right?
What drives me nuts with this new kickoff rule is the ball being placed on the 30-yard line. Okay, the Rams had, I think the Rams had 1 or 2 timeouts still at the time. So Dan Campbell elects to kick the ball through the end zone, give Matthew Stafford the ball on the 30-yard line with 17 seconds to go, needing 30 yards to get into potential field goal range. That's scary to me, right? And I hate to reference the Packers because they are the organization and the team that I hate more than anything in this world. But the Packers seem to have figured out this kicking rule better than any other team, right? What they do is they tend, and they haven't done it all the time, but they do this little squib kick, or it's just a little low kick where the ball stops in between, inside the 10-yard line, forces the guy to pick it up, but they're almost kicking it into the corner, cutting the field off and coming down, and they're tackling guys inside the 20-yard line and killing time off the clock. If you're the Lions and Dan Campbell in that situation, this pardon the language, this pissed me off to no end. I was screaming this at the field. It ended up working out, which was nice. But again, why are you kicking the ball? If you kick it to their returner, squib kick it, you're going to kill 3 or 4 seconds off the clock on the return. Plus, you're going to tackle them in all likelihood. You say the guy does get out to the 30-yard line. Okay, great. You killed 3 or 4 seconds off the clock by making him return it. And I think NFL teams are still trying to adjust to this rule. But how many times have you seen a team go 30 yards in 17 seconds with 2 timeouts? It happens a lot. And that really petrified me. And that drove me absolutely bonkers in that game. And I think teams, like I said, are still trying to adjust to it. But I just expected more from Dan Campbell in that situation, because they do seem to practice these things, and they do seem to be ahead of the curve on a lot of teams with this, which is also why, to your point, I found what happened at the end of this first half extremely concerning yesterday. That can't happen. I mean, that's got to be common sense stuff. This is stuff you practice. That cost us the game. How many more games?
I don't think we really ever got a full answer as to what really happened. I mean, he kind of glossed over it, right? Clearly there was a breakdown in communication.
100%.
And I think, I'll just leave it at that. I'm not even going to try to speculate anymore. There was a breakdown in communication, what was supposed to happen. That did take 3 points off the board. And then when the second before our last possession to end this game versus the Bucs, you have an opportunity to kick a long field goal with Jake Bates. He's got a freaking boomer of a leg. I mean, like I call some quarterbacks have a rocket launcher attached to their shoulder. This dude has a rocket launcher attached to his leg. He's kicked a 64 to 62 yarder in Ford Field already this season. He's comfortable in the stadium. Let him kick the ball. That's another 3 points. You win the game. Or at least now Tampa Bay has to go down and try to beat you with a field goal. And you still had another opportunity at the end of this game within field goal distance again, and you could have kicked a field goal instead of going for the touchdown or going for the first down. So yes, Dan Campbell lost this game for the Lions. I don't care what else happened on the field in that game. I would sorely put the large majority of this loss on Campbell's shoulders, and that is rare for me to say that a coach was responsible. I'm not going to put it on the refs, even though they screwed us. And I don't understand why. They clearly changed, what they were doing in the second half, right? But yeah. So I'll digress with all that. Tony, it's been great today, man. There's a lot more we can talk about. Absolutely. I'll get you back on soon. So go get your sleep. Have a good night, and appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on, man. I love doing this. I love the discussion. I love the chats. Obviously some of the stuff I say is a little controversial and kind of can rub people the wrong way. But hey, listen, that's what being a Lions fan's all about. We got to have some discussions and talk about this stuff. So let's keep rolling. And man, I would love to come on, and I'll give you the same old Lions take after every loss throughout the season. And at the end of the year, you guys can all tell me how right I was.
All right. Well, hopefully that you won't be right at all. But
yeah.
All right. We'll
Awesome.
We'll catch you later, man.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. Take care.
Tony, Coach Bono. Look. Hold on here. Look, he makes some valid points with certain things, right? I can't say that he doesn't. I didn't get as much out of him as I was hoping to today. My questions were kind of in line with, Jared Goff. He's always been, I guess, a non-Goff supporter. I don't know if I could call him a Goff hater, but he doesn't believe in Jared Goff being a good quarterback. But honestly, he said today that he can't totally blame Jared Goff, which is surprising. I mean, there's still some things that he sees in Jared Goff not doing correct right now or right now that have some concern. But he's not going to blame Jared Goff completely when we don't have a full complement of receivers yet. Tim Patrick is barely up, right? He's barely up, but what I saw was more promising. And clearly, Dan Campbell felt the same way. After the game, he felt that Tim Patrick is going to get a much larger role on this team. Now, whether that's just blowing smoke and sending smoke signals to Arizona to be prepared for Tim Patrick this week, could be. Very well could be. I mean, that it's smoke screen season all season. Every single day it's smoke screen season in the NFL. But I firmly believe after watching Tim Patrick warm up and the guy does not drop balls, man. He's going to be a great addition to this team. He's just going to need a little bit of time to acclimate. But Coach Bono doesn't blame Goff totally. Offense starting slow. Has Ben Johnson been figured out was another question. Something's not right. But I think a lot of it is this offensive line is a little sluggish right now. They're not having their best games. I think we got some guys that are banged up. But something is not happening within this offensive scheme as well. It's not as diverse as it was last season. And I don't know if they're just trying to hold back some of the playbook, thinking that they can beat teams with a limited playbook. If they believe that, they better stop thinking that this week, because these teams are throwing everything at them. And Dan Campbell has said the same thing, that we're going to get everybody's best. And we've seen everybody's best, even with teams that have had a limited amount of players in the game, of healthy players, healthy starters. We're still getting their best, and they are scheming better against us than we are against them. Things that'll get cleaned up, absolutely. Am I worried? I'm really not. Does sacks really matter? I wanted to pin them down on the 5 sacks versus the Bucs, with the Bucs, still giving us an L at the end of the day. I think I kind of got the idea that no, they really don't matter. The fact that you had 5 sacks and lose a game is a bigger problem in and of itself than not getting sacks in a game. Conversely, was defensive end the only answer, still the answer, still a problem? Well, I think I proved enough to show that, look, we had a patchwork defensive line to a degree. We got a lot of injuries. Davenport, our prize free agent outside of DJ Reader, was out of the game, but DJ Reader enters the game and Hutch is able to do what he did. Conversely to that, it was against, a third tier offensive lineman. That worries me. And it worries me based on the previous stats that I've gone over with Aiden Hutchinson and how well, or how, he hasn't played well against top tier offensive linemen. You can't deny it. You can go look up the stats for yourself. I'm not trying to be a Hutch hater. I just like to provide you guys the truth, the transparency, the stats, the analytics, the key performance indicators, and talk about it. But here we see a game where we have a ton of sacks and we can't win. Yes, I'm going to put that on Dan Campbell. Many were claiming that, we needed a defensive end this year. I said that we needed interior defensive line. Clearly, you can see that interior defensive line was the biggest answer to this defense, outside of adding some competent defensive backs that are still learning how to play together in the back end of this defense. But Aaron Glenn has got to do something different here. He has got to get these guys to bracket down and close off, the middle of this field. Someone has to hang out over the middle of this field. I've been saying it since last year. You cannot sell out and leave these guys open. You just can't. And we've done it, 20 some odd games in a row. There may be one game in the last 2 seasons that I've actually seen us do something different. Man, there's so much improvement here, and that's a good thing, right? If we were at the end of our ability, like if there was no more, there was no more going north for this team, meaning you can't get better, then I would be worried. But there's a lot that this team can clean up because we've seen them do it. We've seen them do it last year and the year before, the last half of 2022. DJ Reader clearly changed the game instantly. I mean, instantly, the minute he steps on the field. I do not care about his stats. I've said that for a year and a half now podcasting. Hive defense means everything to me. You're going to have some worker bees that are doing all the grunt work. They're out there collecting all the pollen. They're coming back and they're working and creating all the honey, right? And then there's some guys that are just going in and getting the honey, right? Invading the honey pot. That was Aiden. DJ Reader was collecting all the pollen. Aiden was getting all the honey. Defense lapsed, even with 5 sacks they did. You cannot not contain quarterbacks. You have to keep these guys bottled up. And that was a clear issue again. To touch base on a couple of other topics I wanted to get to, and then I'll end it for the day. So I had some impressions from week 2. Didn't really do NFC Roundup. I'll do that tomorrow. But some quick impressions of the week and where, where is the NFC North headed? Where are the Lions headed? Well, impression number 1, you better start taking the Minnesota Vikings serious. If they stay healthy, they're going to be one of the better teams in the NFC North this season. They will compete for the number 1 spot, guaranteed, as long as they stay healthy. It was a great decision to pick up Sam Darnold. I said it the minute they picked him up, and you're watching it happen now. Lions clearly stumbled, right? Another impression for 2 weeks in a row. We stumbled in a lot of areas, but we also have areas that we can clean up. Good coaching wins football games. And you saw that with Malik Willis beating the Colts this weekend. What a difference coaching can make for a quarterback that was just thrown to the curb. Game management, put him in a management type of situation, you can win games. Caleb Williams, I know this is kind of NFC North stuff, but whatever. Sacked 7 times versus the Texans. Now, I said it earlier that the Texans had 9 sacks on the season, that they were ranked 2nd or 3rd in the league now for sacks. 7 of them came in week 2. Everyone said we needed Danielle Hunter. Or not everyone. Majority of people said we needed Danielle Hunter. Certain factions of people thought that Danielle Hunter was the answer. Then why are they getting all their sacks in one game? Well, the same thing is going to be said about the Detroit Lions now. They got the majority of their sacks in one game. What are they going to do the next week? Where is the consistency? Well, it's only been 2 weeks, but basing off of what happened last season, there was many games in a row where we didn't have sacks. Certain players disappear off the stat sheet. Players that shouldn't disappear off the stat sheet. Your current rankings in the NFC North, the Vikings are 2-0. The Lions are supposed to be there. Lions are tied with the other 3 teams at 1-1. It's not a bad place to be, but it's not where we expected to be, or at least some of us expected to not be. So that's really it. Those are my impressions from the week, I guess. There's a lot to be said right now with what can be fixed, right? And how it needs to be fixed. It's going to have to start up front with the offensive line. They're going to have to figure out whatever is going on up front. They're going to have to get it figured out. And secondly, on the defense, if Aaron Glenn does not figure out what to do to contain a dynamic receiving core over the middle of the field, I might just melt down in one of these games. And it might happen this Sunday when I'm doing live play-by-play, for the game. You might just witness it because it doesn't make any sense to me that teams like the Rams can come in and shut you down. They just showed you what to do. And then in week 2, it happens to you again. Are you not going to take a little bit of what they're doing right and start utilizing it against other teams? That's what Aaron Glenn needs to do. And no, I'm not saying Aaron Glenn needs to be fired or Aaron Glenn, is not a good coach. I don't believe in any of that. I just feel like he's stubborn and he's not putting his guys into the best situation to win. Let these guys do what they do well. Put them in the right position to have success. But that also means you have to call the right damn plays. You have to put the guys in the right schemes. And we're not seeing that quickly. We're not seeing the changes, the adaptions quick enough. One last thing. Team of the Week and Player Awards. Aiden Hutchinson so far has been left off. I don't think a lot of you expected that. But on PFF's grades and Team of the Week and Player Awards, Aiden Hutchinson was only added as a flex player on Team of the Week. Not an edge. Nope, that was Dennis Gardeck and Josh Hines-Allen. Defensive line was Travis Jones and Keanu Benton. Linebackers were Fred Warner, Jordan Brooks. Cornerbacks are Kamari Lassiter and Cam Taylor-Britt. Safeties, Elijah Molden and Brian Branch. And your flex edge, Aiden Hutchinson. I guess I've really never heard of a flex edge before, but it is what it is. In the other awards for the week, Offensive Player of the Week was Kyler Murray, go figure. Defensive Player of the Week, Fred Warner from the San Francisco 49ers. Rookie of the Week, Marvin Harrison Jr. And Offensive Line of the Week, your LA Chargers. So again, the Lions get the short end of the stick. Aiden has a completely dominating performance, and PFF can't get out of their own hatred for the Lions. Now, I have not looked at any other awards of the week by NFL or anything, but we'll take a look at that later on today. So that's it for today's episode. I'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. I think Eric should be back tomorrow. He's off today, taking care of family business. Wishing you well on that front, Eric. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. And then tonight, it's the members All 22 review. That notification should be going out shortly. Make sure you guys have notifications turned on. That's the only way you're going to get notified as a member. If you do not have notifications turned on, you probably won't see it. So take 2 seconds when we get off, go and select notifications, turn them on to all. You will get a max of 3 notifications per day. So it's not hundreds, right? It's not consistently bashing your phone with dings and notifications and vibrations. It's only 3 per day is the max that you're going to get from us. So, all right, you guys have a great day. Appreciate you guys joining us and putting up with Coach Bono and his same old Lions takes. Hey, they weren't so bad. I was expecting worse. Trust me, we've had worse. But he's as realistic as they come. He's also a Lions season ticket holder. So I don't know many fans that invest that kind of money if you don't love your team. So he's just a realistic fan. Maybe he's holding on to a little bit of a grudge, right? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what he says next time. But that's it for today. You guys have a wonderful day.